Hello humans. So, guns. Ooh, divisive. Love them or hate them, guns are going to be in movies for the foreseeable future. So we thought we'd do a deep Desperado-style dive into the alternative options to using real guns on set. And what better way to demonstrate than by creating an overly elaborate gunfight sequence that John Woo himself would look at and say, yeah, I can really see what you tried to do. It all started one evening as I was walking to work.
Moving upstairs, studio clear. Search every inch of this place. I want their box of tricks found.
Hello.
This is my studio, and I have to defend it.
Damn it, where is it? The filmmaker. Still dressing up as cartoon characters, I see.
Still fetishizing your own occupation, I see.
It's quite practical, actually.
Mm-hmm. You don't even know what's in there, do you? Go on, take a look. So the box of tricks was saved. Hurrah! More effects for another day. JP, we are stood in front of an array of weapons here, but not real weapons.
No. Got a bit of a mixed bag here. We've got a combination of airsoft model guns, which are basically cap guns.
Gotcha.
Hard and soft rubber.
So prop guns, essentially. Okay, so let's look at airsoft. So that's the Glock, which is the one that I use quite a bit in the opening part, and that does full blowback. You can cock it, and it's got its sort of magazine, and that's where the gas canister goes in. If this has got gas in it, if it runs out of BBs, it sort of ends in the way a Glock would. But if you literally just jam a little bit of something in the bottom there, it means it will just keep firing. So we were able to kind of cheat that when necessary.
Yeah, it's a way of enabling in that particular airsoft type of handgun to dry fire, so effectively not fire any BB or anything in the barrel or in the magazine.
Yeah. Our shotties here, as you said, we've got two different versions here. That's a hard resin one there, that's sort of solid hard, and that's got a good weight to it. Then we've got this one here, which you can see is made of foam. So that's really soft, but the paint job on it is just glorious. And as you can see, it just looks like the real thing. And actually the foam one has a slightly better bit of detailing. Depending on what material you're using to make your cast, you get different degrees of quality, right? And actually the soft foam one actually has come out a bit better. And then there's the hard one. So we actually had these made for film that we've just been working on. We wanted to do a sort of good weighty hero version that we could rig with some flash cotton. So you actually kind of augmented this. We got it as one, obviously it's just a solid piece of resin that's painted, but hello. What's this little guy here?
It's a little electrical connector there. So yes, the film required that we have a shotgun of this kind of type and look and everything. Through the requirements of the script, we needed to simulate it firing, and the production, quite rightly, from current events, wanted to avoid using blank ammunition or high load blank ammunition in a open bore shotgun such as this. So we had the hard version made and came up with this solution of simulating the blast from the muzzle, which was flash cotton with an electric match in there. And this has been internally wired so that near the trigger guard here, we see electrical jack, which will then plug into one of our Cobra receiver boxes and take a wireless command to trigger the flash.
And you actually, you could, because it's resin, it's not super strong, so you actually reinforce the interior of the barrel with some copper pipe.
Yes.
And then drill down a bit deeper into there so that you could then feed the cable internally up to the barrel. So there's a cable actually running inside the shotgun into the barrel. The actor can literally have the cable coming out of there, totally hidden, up through their costume, and then that could go to a receiver pack, and then literally, you know, they have to just worry about doing their performance, and then, you know, we're offset monitoring and just remotely triggering.
Yeah, that was the main benefit as well, is that we would have ultimate control. Although it's a very modest size, you know, very safe flash effect that would happen, it would be something that we would be triggering, so there would be no chance of accidentally our actor or actress setting this thing off when it was pointed in a dangerous
because I mean, that
position.
trigger there, if they pulled that, it'd probably just snap.
Yes. And also, going back to the requirements of the film, so this is the hard firing version, and then the soft version, which was primarily used for rough handling and some specific stunts.
Yeah, that's
which
right.
Which is quite a common requirement for TV and film work with weapons such as this. You'd very often have either a rubber or a soft silicon version of a weapon, if not for specific kind of hitting scenes and things like that. Simple little things that you perhaps don't always think about. You know, you have a shot where perhaps they're not doing an elaborate stunt, but they throw the weapon to the side or away. If you do that with something that's hard resin or deactivated or real metal heavy, you know, bludgeon of a weapon, it can either damage that weapon, it can damage the paint or the metal, what have you, but more importantly, it can hurt people.
I'm not going to hit him, but if I do, it won't actually hurt. But the idea is actually to never hit people, even if it's soft. Ha 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 ha! Uppercut? Yeah, could try an uppercut.
Yeah, because then you've got the excuse to do
to fly. Yeah, let's try an uppercut then. Yeah,
why not?
Yeah.
Here we go, guys.
It's rubber, it's rubber, come on. Diva! So we got our cap guns, which I think is the revolver, the Uzi, and the riot gun, particular favourite of mine, very much harkening back to the hard-boiled days.
The manufacturers of these replica weapons have made an amazing effort in making them as realistic as possible. So for TV and film use, they're actually really, really good to use because some of these models eject shells when
Yeah.
they fire and they give a bit of smoke. And nowadays, they're actually quite rare and subsequently fairly expensive for certain models. They were made at a time where a lot of the components were metal
Right.
or
Nice.
ABS, very tough plastic, very hard wearing. So the realism is actually very high on some of these models. This is a hefty bit of metal,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
replica, and it's to the same size and weight and everything that the real counterpart has. But the amazing thing about model guns in general is that they have a internally blocked barrel.
Yes.
They have a firing mechanism that will not allow any live ammunition or converted ammunition to be put or fed into
Blanks
these
or
things.
in, yeah.
Yeah, they only fire the very specific cartridges that have these very low powered caps in. So the caps that these take within their shell casings, if you
Yeah.
like, are very similar looking to a real live caliber.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But in reality, they're very different and they cannot be made to chamber or be modified to fire anything live. So the great thing about model guns is they eject the shell. One less thing to worry about in post in adding. Gives you a little bit of smoke, a moderate bang to the cap sound going off, which can help your actor, motivate your actor
Yeah.
into understanding the threat or what's going on
Yeah.
around them.
And timing for Foley, things like that.
Exactly, yeah. And they're just great kind of collectible curiosities, really.
And also, riot gun.
Yes.
Because this actually, so this will do, I mean, obviously all of that flips out, but this is sort of a pump, and that will literally eject the thing.
Yeah.
So we've actually got kind of shotgun shells for that. Again, to a specific caliber. You couldn't put a real shell in there.
That's right, yeah. So, I mean, this one in particular is quite interesting because it has a kind of legit metal foldable stock. Like you said, it has the pump action to it, which I'm going to dry fire now. And what that enables us to also do is have a very realistic loading process as you would have from a real shotgun. So you'd actually be able to load one into the pipe, if you like, and then continue to load your rounds underneath here. And again, if you've got a sequence in a film where your character is supposedly loading a weapon, a lot of these model guns can simulate that actually very, very realistically. Once we've fired a round, it will eject the casing out. Again, giving that level of realism that can really help make the difference between choosing this or an airsoft or a rubber dummy version.
Yeah. But of course, I suppose then the issue with that being, of course, that there are only the ones that have been made by whomever the manufacturer is.
Yeah.
So you would be limited to whatever those sort of weapons are available. Obviously, we featured the Uzi in one of our episodes, or a couple of our episodes actually, because it's just an iconic weapon. Your Rambos and whatnot. And often in the hands of bad guys from various movies in the 80s. And so Jape's got hold of one of these. We did a little video on firing it. But yeah, we did have a couple of little issues. But I mean, when you've got lots of moving parts, there's always the possibility that something could jam or whatever, in the same way that I guess a real gun could jam.
Well, this particular model replica is probably over 40 years old.
Damn.
35, 40 years old. Primarily metal, so it's very durable. But
Yes.
as we found during the rough and tumble nature of a shoot like this, things get dropped, lent on accidentally, obviously. So this was playing up a little bit towards the end, but it was soon fixed because they are built very well. Also, what these replicas do, and I think it's part of what the intended market was to get people that weren't in a legal position to be owners of the real version as close as possible to a replica. And that also includes field stripping, cleaning, all the maintenance work that goes part and parcel with people that enjoy firearms.
Yeah. You want to fire the gun now, don't
I do want to fire this.
I think this is partly just a pride thing for JP because it didn't work so well when we needed it to.
It was
at the time.
a bit of a diva on the day.
Was a bit of a diva. So we're just going to check everything's fine now.
So we're just going to check it's going to fire, okay? And again, this might be a good example of the noise level as well and how relatively quiet.
Absolutely, practical demonstration.
So here we go.
Now she works. Now she works.
You know, nice bit of smoke at the end of the barrel, nice ejecting shells, something there that an actor or actress can react to in terms of a little bit of recoil and a little bit of sound. Nothing as offensive as a blank powered round, you know, a full flash blank.
Yeah, because they basically sound like a real round,
Some
right?
are louder.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yo. So this is the part where I do a call to action. But I hate calls to action. So I'll just say, bang. Nice. So those are our weapons that we have available, and then we obviously kind of tailored our gunfight sequence to what we had available. One of the really big things we wanted to demonstrate in this episode is interactive lighting. A number of kind of contemporary films involving gunfights go into production favoring post in terms of a way to augment the gunfights, right? In terms of adding muzzle flash and things like that. That's something this doesn't have. But what you don't get with adding such things in post is any light in the space.
Right.
And it's a bit of a giveaway.
You see it sometimes in indie films or low-budget films where people use airsoft or replica weapons, and they add the muzzle flash, and they kind of forget about the light that flash would be immediately casting. And yes, you can go to replicate that in post, but it kind of tends to look fake. And it's also moving light as well, depending on the weapon and the flare and all that stuff. But it's possible that when a muzzle flash lasts longer than a frame, 2 frames, 3 frames, if it's a large flash, the actual light has a movement to it, which can cast a moving shadow as well in that brief moment. And it's all those details that subconsciously you know whether it's real or not. And when it's not there, there's something there that doesn't feel quite right. And a few modern film examples can show where they haven't really considered that, or also haven't considered amping that effect up to make it look more dramatic.
Yeah, it's not necessarily just about realism, especially with something like a gunfight. I mean, a prime example is the films of John Woo, which of course we are huge fans of, being children of the 80s and 90s. John Woo was the primary exponent of amping up a gunfight, right? And not just in terms of the choreography, the slow-mo and all of that. If you watch a John Woo film, The Killer, Hard Boiled, those kind of classics, the stuff that's going on during those gunfights. And we didn't go all the way, and I think we want to.
We had a little bit of woo.
We had a smidge of woo. We had a little bit woo. The Zerk hits, flashes, air cannons, and things like that.
Flying paper. Pigeons, which we didn't have. Yeah, or doves.
Doves. Adding all of that, and you can go really nuts with it. Yeah. And like in the context of an action film, all of that sort of feels more right than not having it in a way.
Yes, in terms of Hollywood or Hong Kong classic action films, you sometimes want to dial that up actually and make it a bit more visually exciting, engaging. And
our most woo shot probably was when I open up with the Uzi and fire once again at Pete as he kind of staggers with all of this stuff going off. And that was a mixture of flash bulbs and spark hits, which you'd pre-rigged in a sequence. And so, the spark hits are great, but then when you've also got the space lighting up as well, that combo. Yeah. Oh, so impressive.
Yeah, the intention behind that was to add a perception of depth, that the hits were somewhere hitting the front surface of the balcony and somewhere impacting behind Pete as he was running. But it also obviously helped with exposure, so we could see Pete running the length of the balcony, where normally, because he was dressed in black, he might have been missed.
Yeah, and it's almost like you're getting snapshots. Just like brief moments, and it's why we kind of deliberately lit very low, because we wanted all the lighting to do the work.
And again, that's the thrust of what we were interested in experimenting with, is how far you could push this. Yes, it's not very realistic in many examples, but stylistically it's quite an interesting choice to use or be able to use in a film or TV project.
Yeah, absolutely. And then of course our Zerk hits came into play for just when we were we get the guy blind firing, hitting the metal. We generally just would stick something metal in the background whenever we wanted to justifiably motivate a spark. And if you want to see a bit more on Zerk hits and using paintball guns for bullet hits, we've got an episode that you can watch to see how you do that. So we want to present a couple of examples of the types of interactive lighting that we utilized in our sequence. And in fact, the first one in the sequence is where Pete, as guy one, I take his weapon from him, turn it on him. But we went to that wide specifically because what we wanted to do is light up the car. And so for that one, we used Mr. Strobe.
Mr. Strobe.
Yeah.
Traditional xenon-based strobes or photo flash photography strobes are very, very fast. They're actually problematically fast for video because you encounter shutter speed issues and rolling shutter, which will give you that banding look where it's slightly misfiring with the exposure of the image. So you get either a very hot top or bottom half of the frame. So I found an LED strobe which has a slightly slower flash and decay to the light, but gave us the output for the size that we were kind of looking for. And this is just a fairly consumer grade, low cost LED strobe that you probably find in a lighting shop for nightclubs.
Yeah, it's like a venue thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's the lower end.
For clubs.
It's the lower end.
Low-end club nights, the best ones.
But the interesting thing, it has, and it's not uncommon for such a light, it has a sound to light trigger. So it has an internal microphone that once you rig that light anywhere in your room or club or what have you, it will pick up on the bass or a certain amount of frequency and it will flash to the music.
Comme ça. All right.
Yeah, so I did a very simple hack job of soldering a third-party microphone. We still haven't found the perfect microphone that will give us the sensitivity that we ideally want, but we will get there.
And this isn't completely unheard of technology in this realm. Like, this is kind of the DIY version.
There's systems out there that can either be tuned, to a very specific frequency that will pick up way more accurate range of what you want to trigger the light to.
And as a result of the mic that we had not really picking up the sound quite as well, quite often we do a few and it just wasn't, we couldn't put the mic close enough to the gun for it to register. So what we ended up doing actually quite a lot of the time was just tapping it.
Yes.
And actually in some ways you get quite dexterous with that. And so we could do single taps for like a revolver or a Glock. And then we went to Uzi, we'd just kind of do a fast tap. And you could really get into it. There was a number of situations where it was far more useful and quick and cheap compared to using, say, a load of flash bulbs or something like that.
In our original test in Studio 2 that we did, and it was a very fixed kind of locked off shot, and that was kind of great because we could offer that up just shy of the camera lens, and in that kind of fixed composition, it worked great.
Yeah.
It's just when you kind of need it to do multiple roles, that's when it's best to employ other things.
Yeah, such as
Flash bulbs.
flash bulbs.
So we've used them multiple times before. Most prominently probably for the lightning simulation in our fiber fill clouds episode. The only difference is these are tinted with a glass paint. And what we found with the flash bulbs was probably the most flexible in terms of simulating gunfire in general, where we could offer it up actually quite close to the barrel or the lens and just throw that nice pulse of light that would simulate the light that you'd get from a muzzle flash.
Yeah, because it is that lovely pulse compared to, say, a strobe.
Yeah.
Although that does mimic that to a certain degree, that sort of decay that you get feels more natural, like an actual, pyrotechnic explosion, as it were.
Technically, the flash bulb is a pyrotechnic event. It's happening inside the bulb itself. And funnily enough, the inside of these bulbs is zirconium, which is what we used for our paintball spark hits and our electrically ignited spark hits. And it also helps keep a consistency in the brightness and the flash type as well. And we've known from previous experience that things like flash bulbs that have that punch and that decay to the light also help us with the rolling shutter.
Yes.
Because yes, you do encounter some banding issues, but nothing like you would get with, like I said before, a photo flash or a higher speed flash.
So on the whole rolling shutter thing, that is something you need to consider if you're doing this kind of flash stuff, because a lot of cameras do not have what's called a global shutter. generally speaking, they will be scanning frames. And so we actually went for the Venice, the Sony Venice, thanks to the fine folks at Cine West, along with a lovely set of Kowa lenses from Japan. Actually, we thought it had a global shutter, but actually it doesn't.
Yeah, you're totally right. It is a rolling shutter camera or sensor. It is CMOS, but it has, for its sensor type, it actually has a very fast refresh rate to its sensor for its camera type.
Yeah.
Which helped us immensely because we found when we shot a few pickups on our other cameras, we were encountering a lot more visible banding rolling shutter when shooting the flashes.
Yeah, which then obviously we needed, well, you did some frame removals and things in post just to tidy that up.
You know, let's not forget there are some modern day examples of rolling shutter being prevalent in action scenes.
Terminator Genesis.
That can be considered a thing that people like. To me, it just looks more like a technical mistake, you know. So
an example of using the flash bulbs where they're quite portable. In that shot where I come out from the bottom of the stairs into the dock, and it's kind of a moving shot, it's quite kinetic, it's wide, so there's nothing you can really hide there. And so what we actually did is we kind of rigged flash bulbs into my jacket, a little receiver pack on the back, and so up I get, and I was literally, had my gun there, and I was just holding the bulbs. Camera was on my right side, so I've got bulbs there, and then what you've got is essentially a flash coming directly where it should be coming from.
Yeah, you've got a directional kind of interactive light source coming from there that if it wasn't there, there would be nothing, and it should be lighting up a portion of that room or the victim in front of you. You don't necessarily need any of these kind of replica weapons. We could be having a finger gun battle and doing the same technique. And I think with the addition of sound effects and muzzle flash and kind of puffs of smoke and stuff, it's actually really surprising how realistic you can get to quite quickly. There's a sequence in the film where you have a little tussle with a bad guy and we just see it through frosted glass.
Yes.
And all we did there was fire the strobe manually by tapping. And you've just got some interesting silhouette shapes that are moving in front of the camera, and add a sound effect to that, and it kind of looks interesting.
Yeah. So there's actually only one airsoft, which is the Glock. Apart from the bespoke made shotguns that we've had, these are all kind of model guns. Do you have a particular preference for model guns as opposed to an airsoft?
Primarily for me, for doing TV film type work, they offer almost an unparalleled level of safety over airsoft, actually, because with airsoft there's always the potential, as low risk as they are, for a BB to get lodged, something to get in the barrel, and yes, we're only talking very, very small caliber here, but
ultimately this is passing gas into a barrel.
Yes, and it can take an eye out. It can be quite nasty if a BB, still BB's in there and you don't know it, and you're doing a shot where you shoot someone near the face. So airsoft in particular should be treated as a live firearm wherever it's used, purely because it has the potential
to fire projectiles.
Now, model guns, on the other hand, are very unique in that they are very accurate replicas, up to the standard of modern airsoft, actually, in terms of accuracy and build quality. I think the dream situation for film and TV to go forward in a totally safe way would be hybrid between airsoft and these model gun replica types. So something that has the realism of the gas system, the blowback here, action, gives you a bit of recoil, but something that has a blocked barrel or no ability to accidentally fire a projectile, anything venting through the barrel itself. The other dream would be that it would eject empty casings, so it's another implication for post not having to do.
Absolutely.
And then the third one would be for it to have an internal wireless transmitter that could sync to things like our strobe or a pyro squib or a firing system. So remotely you could initiate a certain firearm on the set to be allowed to talk to someone wearing a squib or an interactive light happening when that actor or actress gets near to the action.
It kind of becomes a little bit potentially problematic there, doesn't it, in terms of giving your actor something that will then actually trigger a detonator.
Yeah, you know, the technology's there to make these have a dead man's switch, pardon the pun, but where a pyro operator will be able to actively initiate that
to
in
open
time.
the circuit at just the point at which they are
Exactly.
allowed to use it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Now, obviously, not every single gun that's ever been made is available in airsoft or as a toy cap gun. But as we've demonstrated with these shotties, they can be made, they can be
Yes.
fabricated. And I have to say, when we walked onto that set, when you give a safety briefing that is essentially as simple as, this is a prop gun. It doesn't work. It cannot fire any kind of projectile. It can't fire anything. It's literally, nothing more than really a paperweight. That just instantly calms everybody.
It does. And I think just because these are replicas, some of them are literally solid rubber or solid resin, they should still be treated with the same respect as if they were real firearms. That includes safety briefings, like you say, because even if everyone's on the same page and knows exactly what the score is with what they're handling, you also got to bear in mind that they need the security of having an eye kept on them and being stored in a secure place. Because if one of these, even this, was taken from our studio, taken to the local bank and used in
To make a withdrawal.
an unauthorized withdrawal, there'll be some serious questions.
Yeah, then we want to get time for questions. You've got the armed police rocking up, ready to deal with your problem.
And also, something that may be good to mention about these particular weapons, or replica weapons, is that they can really come in handy if you're doing a film or TV project abroad, or even in different states of the US where they might have different laws on weapons and replica weapons and how they might be crossing borders and things like that. So going the replica route in general is, if you can, an ideal way to go, because it maintains safety and can also keep the costs down.
We used the SIG for the final scene. I wanted to give this to Andre. Big ups to Andre Pattenden, remarkable photographer who works in the studio very frequently, good friend of ours. And thank you so much, Andre, for stepping in and being our arch villain, the photographer. And yes, for that final scene, I really wanted him to use the SIG because I wanted to have that final kind of close up and get that shell ejection. Like you say, there's little details, it's just stuff you don't have to do in post. Obviously, I dressed up as a known anime character that I may have a mild obsession with. That's up to me. I'm in a position where I can do that, so shut up. I wanna be like Spike. Obviously a bit of a dream for me. Dressed like Spike in an action movie sequence. It's very exciting.
Shot a photographer.
And I've just shot a photographer. I shot a photographer. So this is Spike Spiegel's Jericho from Cowboy Bebop. Yeah, I'm sort of into it a little bit. I don't know, you might have noticed. This is just a BB gun. It doesn't really move or anything. You can take that out. So in the shot, we're literally just going to show that, and then I'm just going to do the action of cocking it, and then we'll just put that sound effect in later. So you just kind of work with what you've got, you know? Sound effects are so good for filling in the gaps where like a gun that you have does not do all of the bits and bobs. Sound is really handy for filling in those gaps. I'd like to say a little bit about our arch nemesis, Andre Pattenden, world-renowned photographer and a very wonderful man. And I asked if he would like to be my villain, which he agreed to. He's rocking the sort of quite sexy leather, it kind of looked like a shoulder holster, I think, which is where I kind of got the idea of making the villain the photographer, and that's his character piece. So he's got his cameras hanging down at his side, very groovy. So yeah, he's our bad guy for this, and master of all of the faceless henchmen. It's very important to have faceless henchmen. It's nothing better than a guilt-free kill. Whew. It's okay. The boxer tricks is safe. That was a lot of killing and a lot of guns, which are really not my jam, to be clear. Probably looked like I was having a really great time with it, but that's the power of acting. Thank you so much for watching. Do leave us a comment and give us a like if you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more goodness. Check out our Patreon. You can go on there and get lots of extra special goodies. Follow us on all the socials so you can keep updated and all of that good stuff. Till next time.